the National Millennial Community, National Millennial / Gen Z, yeah, it keeps evolving, right? So I'm going to introduce Megan, and then she's going to introduce everybody else, so just kind of bear with us, and then we'll get to Bill. Megan, come on up. Everybody else?
Yeah, go ahead. Come on. All right. Okay, my name is Megan. I finished my undergrad here with a major in marketing and a minor in Spanish, and I am part of the NMGZ community here. We are a school club, and it is also a national club, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we'll introduce everybody.
Hello, my name is Daniel. I'm a soccer player here at EOU. I'm a junior. I'm an economics major with a minor in marketing, and I just joined the club. So yeah, I'm just really excited to learning from Bill today and getting to know him and his story.
Thank you, Danny. My name is Diego. I'm also an economics major as well. I have a minor in marketing. I also recently joined the club, and I'm very excited to see just Bill's side of the story and really learn from him. He's a marketing professional, so I'm really excited for today. And yeah.
I'm Josh Ferguson. I am getting a double degree in business and marketing with a minor in theater. And I've been in NMGZ for a while, and I'm really excited for y'all to get to hear Bill speak and get to know him a little bit.
I'm Sophie Fast. I'm a sophomore, business major, Spanish minor. Basically all the same. I don't want to repeat myself, so you guys get the gist.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm a senior majoring in marketing, and same thing, kind of what they've all been saying, but I'm glad you guys are all here, so it should be fun.
My name is Michael Bergen, and my major is IT management, and my minor is in business. And I'm pretty new in this club and just joined.
Yeah, so again, thank you for coming, and I'm going to pass it on to Megan.
Awesome. And then we can go ahead and get into our presentation, if that's good.
Again, guys, thank you for coming. I can't express enough how much you're going to learn from this individual. Bill has been my friend first for a long time, and I've gotten to go on several trips with him. I've gotten to meet some of his acquaintances, which is just invaluable. He is a leader in the advertising and marketing industry, has been for a long time. He was recently inducted into the Advertising Hall of Fame, which is, that's the top of the pinnacle, guys. There is no higher point than that. But the coolest thing is his story, and he'll share a lot with you. He, I want to say he loves potatoes, but probably not. He grew
potatoes.
There you go, right, see? So he grew up not far from here before his exciting life in LA and the beginning of his company. So the overarching message is you can do anything you want. You just have to dedicate yourself to success. So I'm introducing my friend, Bill Imada. Here he goes.
Hey, I got this. So thank you all for being here. Dr. Carpenter was saying that I have a connection to Eastern Oregon. So if any of you grew sugar beets or alfalfa or potatoes, I was born in Ontario. So in Malheur County, my family actually lives in Weiser, Idaho now, Fruitland and New Plymouth. So if you're from that area, you will know that we were potato farmers for a long, long time, and my family actually worked for Ida Potatoes, and my brothers and sisters, we were all born in Ontario. But ultimately, my parents decided that they wanted to move us, so we moved to LA, and I think the kids went kicking and screaming. We did not want to move to Los Angeles. But we ultimately moved to LA, but one thing my dad always said is do not forget where you're from. And my dad always wanted to move back to Ontario. He wanted to go back to farming, and he never had that chance. He passed away. So it's very important for me to come back over and over and over again to Eastern Oregon because my family has strong ties to this area. And so when Dr. Carpenter said, can you please come to LeGrand? I said, absolutely. So I will come as often as I need to because I want all of you to see not only that you have opportunities here locally, but if you want to, you'll be able to find opportunities wherever you want to go. And I will tell you, even if you move to places like Seattle or Portland, LA or Boise, you may always find your way back here again. So I wanted to start off by getting you to do things. And a few of you have seen me talk before. I know Michael Fields has seen me talk before, but I want to get you to do something because I don't like you sitting in seats. So I'm going to have you all get up and find somebody in this room that you do not know and pair up with that person. And faculty, I want you to do the same thing. Pick somebody in the room that you have never met.
Hey.
Okay. Everybody find someone? Okay, listen up. One of you is, listen up, everyone. Woohoo. Okay, listen up, everyone. One of you is going to be A, one of you is going to be B. So pick the A and B. The A person is going to start. So listen up. A, you will have about a minute and a half to tell the person with you 3 things about yourself. 3 things. So you have a minute and a half to do that. So, and then after that, you switch. B tells A 3 things about themselves, about him or herself, okay? So you ready? Start. You done? You're quick. Perfect. All right, you should be on your B now. All right, wrap it up. Okay. Now you have to find somebody completely different. And I want you to get up and find that person, somebody completely different that you do not know in this room. Okay, you got 10 seconds to do that. Okay, before you start, this is the twist. You have to tell this person 3 things that you did not tell the person before you. 3 completely different things about yourself, starting with A and then B, you follow. Go for it. Thanks so much. All right, you should be on B by now. Okay, you have about 15 seconds. You got to wrap up after that. All right, wrap it up. Are you guys done? You done? You done? All right. Guess what? You got to do this again. Pick another person that you have never met, and you have to do this exercise again, but you have to pick 3 more things that you did not tell the other 2 people. Got it? So pick a different person. Don't be shy. Pick a different person. Or usually handhelds don't work that well for me, but I think it works. Okay, you have another 30 seconds. Another 30 seconds. All right, everyone, you got to wrap it up and you can take your seats. Everyone, we're going to wrap it up. All right, you all get your extra credit. We're done. No. Um, so I want to ask you, who found that exercise easy? Dr. Fields, you found it easy. You're the student body president, so. Why did you find it easy, Diego?
I would say I'm a good person to like communicate with. I can talk well with other people.
Fields?
I didn't move very well. I did talk to people.
That's right. But who found it difficult? Why did you find it difficult?
I found it difficult just thinking of 9 different things about myself because I feel like with a whole minute and a half, I feel like I was listing things out rather than just doing the 3. So I say that was the most difficult.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. And I felt like I was listing like facts about me, not actually like who I am.
Anybody else want to comment? Do you know why I asked you to do this? I hate elevator speeches. And you're going to hear this from multiple people, especially if you're in communications and marketing and advertising, is that you need to have your elevator speeches. But this is what I don't like about elevator speeches. My name is Bill Imada. I went to Eastern Oregon University. I studied IT. So what are you passionate about? My name is Bill Imada. I went to Eastern Oregon University. I studied IT. What do you do in your spare time? I went to Eastern Oregon University. I studied IT. I love what I do. You don't get to the essence of who you are. So if you're going to be good marketers or good branders, you need to get deeper. And did you find yourself getting deeper as you were having these conversations, telling things that you probably would not tell somebody you just met? You did, Joss?
I did. Oh, not particularly.
He was in Fiddler on the Roof. Yeah, so a lot of times we'll get deeper as we talk to people. And this is where we need you to all get to if you're going to be good personal branders. And so I learned this early on. Oops, find my pen. And some of you have heard this. I know Dr. Fields has heard this like 20,000 times. But I was teaching a class at the university, at Golden Gate University in San Francisco. And I was in this class, and I walked in the class, and every single person in this class was from a different country. And I said, where are you from? Kenya. Where are you from? Taiwan. Where are you from? Ethiopia. Where are you from? Spain. Where are you from? Germany. I said, are there any Americans in this room? No. And I said, what are you studying? And he said, Bill, we are studying how to talk to American people. And I said, what is the name of the book? And we're reading this book about how difficult it is to connect with Americans because Americans have so many slang terms and so many different ways to communicate. And I said, so tell me a little bit more about that. They said, Mr. Imada, Americans have so many slangs. I said, so do the Germans, so do the Spaniards, so do Thai people, Japanese people, Brazilians. You all have your own slang terms. But just tell me a little bit more about those slang terms and why they were you. They said, Mr. Imada, why do Americans say they should think outside of the box? Do you hear that term in class? Do you hear that term in work? Do you? And why do we say that?
Because you want to be unique and try something different.
Right. When you're in a classroom or you're at a workplace and everyone, you work with them each and every day, you might develop what they call groupthink. And so you're not always getting the inspiration of somebody that might be outside the confines of your office or your classroom. So I was telling this to the student, and he was an Indian from India. And I said, this is the reason why, because we don't want to be confined to our classrooms, or we don't want to be confined to our groups, because after a while it gets a little stale and tired. So we look for inspiration outside of the box. And so the Indian guy said, Mr. Mata, where did the box come from? Did they buy it at Walmart? Did they build this box? How do they create the box? And why is there a box in the picture anyway? Why do Americans say you should think outside of the box? I said, well, I just explained that to you. And then he said, why don't Americans think in the box first? Learn as much as they possibly can at Eastern Oregon University, through your life experiences, through your internships. Think in the box first and then step out. And I went, that's brilliant. So one of the things I want to mention to all of you as you develop your own personal brands is learn as much as you possibly can about one another here, the faculty, administrators, the students, and then step out and share some of the things that you don't know. And then this Japanese student walks up to me and goes, Mr. Imada, why do Americans say we shouldn't reinvent the wheel? You know why we say that? Who has an idea? Well, let's not reinvent the wheel. Have you heard that term? Have you heard that term? Anybody? Nobody wants to raise their hand because they might get called on. So, yes, Megan, why do we say that?
Like, don't overcomplicate things. The wheel is the most basic thing. Just like start with the basics, then go from there.
Once you have this wheel created and it works, like your marketing plan campaign works, your class schedule works, your work schedule works, the product works, the product is selling. why do we have to reinvent something when it already works? And so I'm explaining this to the Japanese student. He goes, Mr. Imada, I moved to the United States for one reason. America's the land of inspiration. Americans, if they work hard and think hard, they could make anything work. And we reinvent wheels all the time. Why do we tell people they shouldn't reinvent wheels? If they could invent a better wheel, what's stopping them? And I said, that's brilliant. So now I want to tell you all, if you can come up with a better process, a better marketing plan, a better branding campaign, do it. Because we reinvent things all the time, and there are not a lot of new ideas. Then my favorite one was the German student and the Taiwanese student. They had 3 pages of American idioms. And I said, what's your first idiom? And they go, why do Black people have a special shopping day called Black Friday? I beg your pardon? Is there a Brown Friday for Latinos? Is there a Asian shopping day? Is there a shopping day for rural people? I went, let's skip that. And then he said, Mr. Imada, why do Americans say we need to level the playing field? Why do we say that? And you probably hear that. The playing field is never level. We need to level the playing field. And that's a basic American value, right? We want everyone to have the same opportunity to succeed in our country. And I was trying to explain that, and the guy from Pakistan said, Mr. Imada, I play football, which Americans call soccer. The playing field is never level in Pakistan. In fact, this side of the field is a little bit lower than this side of the field, and we navigate around that slope. So why can't Americans create a skateboard and navigate this unlevel playing field? Because the playing field will never, ever be level, at least in my lifetime. So my feeling is, even if somebody tells you that we need to level the playing field and it's not level, that's an opportunity to show what you can do in a world that isn't always fair or equal for everyone. So that's one of the key messages. But then I was asking these students, okay, what are you studying right now? And they said, Bill, we're studying this book that says Americans are like peaches. They said, you wouldn't understand, Bill, because you're not American. And I said, yeah, I'm American. I was born in the far east, the far eastern part of Oregon. And they said, but you probably would understand more because you're not what we classify as an American. You're either white or you're Black. And I said, well, I'm not white or Black, but I am American. And I said, but tell me what you're studying. He said, Americans are a lot like peaches. I said, what book is this? I need to get this book because that is an overgeneralization of Americans. Why would you say Americans are like peaches? I'll give you an example. Oh, poor Dr. Carpenter, she's heard this speech about 50 times. What is your favorite thing to eat?
Cereal.
Cereal. Just love cereal. I love every single cereal that Kellogg's makes. I grew up on that, and Post cereal. Those 2 cereals are 2 cereals that I cannot live without. It's an amazing thing that you and I both like cereal. So you make an immediate connection with somebody over cereal. Where did you go to high school?
Rio Rancho.
Rio Rancho in New Mexico? My cousin, 10 times removed, went to that same college just outside of Albuquerque. Not really, but God, it's like amazing that we have a connection through Rio Rancho in, of all places, New Mexico. What's your favorite? What is your, let's see. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is
My favorite movie. I love that too. That's like that is like, I love that movie. That is like one of my favorite things. My favorite movie. I went to Target, Walmart, They actually had CDs and DVDs still. Shocking. And I have a Blu-ray, so I bought every single copy of my favorite movie. And I've been giving them away to everyone in Eastern Oregon. They're like, where'd you get that? I got it at Walmart, got it at Walmart, and they even have a few over at TJ Maxx if you look really, really hard. It's amazing that you and I like the same kind of movies. So what's the point? This is why they say Americans are like peaches, which please don't repeat this because it doesn't make a lot of sense to anybody else. They said it's really easy to bite into the peach. And when you bite into the peach, what do you find? You find a peach pit. And if you eat that seed, what happens? You chip a tooth. So they said it's really easy to bite the peach and get to know American people because Americans could talk about anything: soccer, softball, movies, food. But then you're asked a question like, I'm not going to ask you. I don't think I'm going to ask somebody from Germany. He probably knows a lot more than I think. So, Brazil is a very important country in South America. At one time, they had a woman president. What's her first name? That's right. Her name is, I have no clue. Pretty good. Her name was Dilma. What language do the people that live in Barcelona speak, aside from Spanish? I think probably a few people that speak English, but it's what language they speak in Barcelona?
Catalan.
Catalan, which does not sound anything like Spanish. Have you heard of Nelson Mandela? Nelson Mandela was in prison on an island for most of his life. What was the name of that island? I didn't know either. So, by the way, it's Robben's Island. So a lot of times you're going to get asked for some details about the rest of the world, and we won't know the answer. And by the way, I didn't know the answers either to a lot of these questions. So they say we turn into peach pits because we can't talk about anything beyond our own communities. And so it's very important if you're going to be good marketers or good brand stewards or good PR and communications people that you're as curious as possible. So I was asking the same students, okay, if Americans are peaches, what are you? And they said, we're coconuts. I'm like, okay. You probably would not say you're coconuts in the United States, but why would you say that? They said it takes a while to get to know us. We want to get beyond the superficial, top 3 things that you might have told the person you were talking to, and get to the deeper parts of who you are. Because once you get to the deeper parts of who you are, you get to this very hard coconut shell, and you basically find liquid. And that's where you want to get as a personal brand when you're selling yourselves to companies and organizations, but also when you're representing brands like we do. We want to get to that emotional part of who you are. We want to get that emotional connection to the brand and the product, and that's very important. So, any questions so far? Because I'm kind of racing through this. It's probably a class that you want to take for 10 weeks. Maybe not, but you have a Dr. Carpenter and several other people. But I want everyone to understand that each and every one of you are brands like Nike, like Kentucky Fried Chicken, like General Motors. Each of you have attributes of brand. And I had a big, huge argument with somebody about 3 weeks ago saying, people are not brands. People are people. Everybody has a story that's unique to them. Absolutely. You all have a story that is unique to you. And storytelling is going to be big. So you're probably learning from a lot of classes that storytelling and your own personal stories are valuable. They absolutely are. But the best way to make stories valuable is to share them and get people get away from storytelling to story doing and story living. So if you could take your stories, intersect with another person in this room, share those stories, and actually get people to take action on them, you're going to do well. So on branding, some key attributes, and every class is going to be a little different. I haven't taken a branding class in 20 million years. But one of the key pillars of branding is equity. Now remember, you're all brands, and each companies like Nike, like General Motors, like Lululemon, they all have a form of equity. For all of you, equity is going to places like this and getting extra credit, sitting through and letting me lecture and talk to you. You're building equity each time for your own personal brand, and you want to keep building on that equity. And I'm trying to get people away from this peach mentality to this coconut mentality, is to get deeper into the companies and organizations you work with and the people that you work with. Because once you do that, you've got them for life. And so when you are building your equity, it's very important to take care of your equity. Build on it every single day. Every time you meet somebody, you're building your own personal equity. But at the same time, you could lose that equity in literally 10 seconds by one bad post on social media, or if you are cheating using AI. So you want to make sure that you protect your equity and you build on it, but you also have to understand that any time a brand could lose that, including you, if you take one wrong step. If you do take a wrong step, you want to make sure you fix it right away. The other one is brand personality. So it's very important for you to all know what your personality is, because if you think about Nike, think about Google, you think about Disney. By the way, Disney is a company I represent. Each of them have their own personalities. And so you want to know what your personality is and how you're going to put that forward and project it to others. But it starts off with knowing who you are first. Another one is brand essence. Brand essence is a balance between the emotional and the rational. There are going to be times when you're going to be very empathetic and emotional. You're certainly not going to tell somebody that worked really, really hard on a meal and put it in front of you, and they said, hey, what do you think? Do you think the meal? You're not going to tell that person, your meal sucks. You're probably going to say it's good. Probably not going to over lie about it, but at the same time, you don't want to hurt that person. So you have to have some empathy and some emotion. So you have to understand that somebody that worked hard deserves a little credit, and you want to make sure that you show that empathy by expressing it to them. But there are going to be times where you're going to need to be rational. And you're going to have to say, these are the facts, this is the data, this is the information that I picked up, and this is how it's used. So there's going to be a time where you're going to have to switch back and forth. And some people call it code switching. I don't think there's anything wrong with code switching, because you can still be authentic in a lot of other ways, but sometimes you do need to adapt to where you are. And so brands adapt and evolve, just like you will have to adapt and evolve with different situations that take place, not only here, but around the world. Are you with me so far? Any thoughts or questions? The other thing that I want you to also think about is brand value. You all have value. You may not think you do, but each of you have a task or skill that you do really well. And you want to continue to build on that task and show your value not only to yourself, to your friends and family, but to the companies you're trying to reach. And by the way, it starts off with your resume. And I hope there's no HR people in here or career planning and placement people, but if you're going to be applying for a job in a marketing company or an advertising company or even a PR company, I recommend strongly that you show personality in your resumes. Nobody wants to see a black and white resume. It's good practice. But if you're applying to a marketing job, it could be sports marketing, it could be advertising, it could be entertainment marketing. It could be working in marketing and ag business. You want to show off a little bit of your personality. But you also want to make sure that you know your audience. You probably don't want to have a very crazy resume if you're applying over at US Bank on Adams or Wells Fargo or Farmers Insurance. But if you're applying for a job at Google or Nike or Columbia Sports or even Micron, you want to make sure that you show a little bit of your personality. And I will give you an example. A person from one of the campuses sent me a resume, and they took a scissors and they carved out this corner, rounded it, carved out this corner, rounded it, carved out this corner, rounded it, and then cut the other corner in an angle. And our HR person goes, Bill, what is this? The person got their resume stuck in a paper cutter. I said, give me that resume. This is a little odd, round, 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 in an angle. So I said, let's get this guy on the phone. Randy, got your resume. What is this about? Mr. Imada, I consider myself a well-rounded person with an edge. And I said, get this man in our office right now. And so you want to look at colors and fonts and things to just show off a little bit of personalization. And that's another part of branding that is really important, is differentiation. How do you differentiate yourself from all of your favorite EOU colleagues when everyone is graduating in June, sending their resumes perhaps in May, and they get tons of resumes not only from Eastern Oregon, but from Boise State and from Portland State and from Walla Walla University. How do you distinguish yourself from everyone else? By showing a little differentiation in your personality. So if I can get you to do that, that would be good. I also want to mention this. You do have to unlearn a few things. When I was in college, I learned a lot, and I'm really grateful to all my professors, but there are a few things that I learned in business that I wish I had not learned. And one of them is this: points A and points B. If you're in marketing, if you're in supply chain, if you're in sales, what is the best way to get from point A to point B?
I just say a straight line.
Exactly. And if you're in sales, marketing, all these places, and you use a straight line, what do you say? Time. And if you save time, what do you say? Money. And if you save time and money, you save resources as well. So if you're in sales and marketing, they want you to sell that item immediately. And even today, we're taking shortcuts in marketing and branding. We just want to move on and keep selling. Sell B, sell B, A to B, A to B, A to B, A to B. But guess what? You probably have friends in this room who think like this. You're in your group project with your favorite business professor, Dr. Fields and Dr. Carpenter, and your group has got a project that's due on Friday. And one of your colleagues goes, yeah, I got, softball practice today. I'm also working part-time down the street over at the brew pub. I also side hustle on the side as a realtor. So, we'll get to it when I can. Oh, a few hours later, sorry, didn't get a chance to work on that. Maybe if you talk to me after softball practice a little time, several hours later, my side hustle kicked in and I didn't have a chance to work on it. So, and then all of a sudden, Thursday night, they get to be. And then you have people that think like this. So I have to ask a question now. What's the best way to get from point A to point B? I know I'm not supposed to call on all of you, but what do you think is the best way to get to point A to point B? Straight line. You think so? Saves time, saves money. What do you think? Best way to get from point A to point B? Straight line. Okay. What do you think?
I'm probably kind of going around a little bit, not a straight line.
Okay. Not asking you, Dr. Field. What do you think? Best way to get from point A to point B?
Most efficient way.
Most efficient way could be it. And by the way, efficiency could be 2 days from now, could be a week from now, could be a month from now. So it really depends on who you're talking to. So if you're going to be good branders, good marketers, then you need to know your audience and how your audience consumes information, at what time, at what place, what juncture, and you adapt. So the answer to what is the best way to get from point A to point B is, it depends. All of them are actually okay. depending on who you're talking to, depending on your company, depending on what you're marketing. So, and would you use the same strategy for a person that takes 6 months to get to point B as a person that gets there right away? Would you use the same strategy for a person that says, I need that report tomorrow? Where is it? In fact, I needed it yesterday. You didn't have, another person says, give that report to me, leave it on my desk. If I have time this week, I'll look at it, but it might not be till June 15th. Would you use the same strategy for a person that wants it like this as a person that will take a little time? Probably not. Why? Yeah. Well, some people will say that, you have to adapt. So your strategy might be different. If you have a boss that says, I need this today on my desk, and another person that says, I have 6 or 7 weeks to think about it, probably going to want to have a little different strategy. And so understanding how they like things delivered to them makes a big difference. So you want to ask a lot of questions and do your research and find out who you're marketing to. Any questions so far? Okay, I think I'm going to move on and just walk you through a few things and give you a little bit of information about the company. If you have class, it's okay. So here's a little bit about our company. Well, I hope you liked that video. That's a little bit about our company, and I wanted to just kind of walk you through this because I know some of you are seniors and some of you are juniors, so I want to spend more time thinking about how you might be able to position yourselves. So there are a lot of ad agencies, PR agencies, sports marketing agencies. We're part of a larger group called Interpublic. Interpublic is in 127 countries. It includes sports marketing, entertainment marketing, advertising, public relations, event activations, content creators. We work a lot with social influencers. So there are a lot of different ways to get to point B. And it isn't always a straight line. So even if you don't get the job the first time, don't give up. We have a person in the national millennial community. Her name is Jordan Crowley Watts. She went to BYU in Utah. If you look her up on LinkedIn, she applied to Disney 52 times and got the job. She tried every different way. Front door, front door, front door, A to B. HR, the recruiter, got nowhere. She tried a different door. She got in. So even if you get rejected 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times, if you really want to work someplace, say so and keep trying. I also want to encourage you when you're applying for a job, not just to say, hey, I'm thinking about working in sports marketing or advertising. If you see a company you want to work for, go to that recruiter and say, I see myself working here. What is it going to take for me to get that job? That is not something I'm used to doing personally. Now I realize that people want to hear that you want to commit to working at that company. And if you do that, it's going to actually help a lot. So we're in multiple locations. We're going pretty quickly. We are in the multicultural space, but you do not have to be somebody in the multicultural area to do well in our business. Anybody can do this work. And we hired a person for the National Millennial and Gen Z community who is from Danbury, Connecticut. It's a very small town in Connecticut. He didn't know anything about multicultural marketing. He's now the vice president of our Pacific Northwest office because he became an expert in this space. Any questions so far? So I don't want to get too far. These are our clients. And I want to tell everyone in this room that you are all very powerful people. If you were to spend another 10 minutes with everyone in this room and you found out the 10 most influential people they know here in LeGrand, maybe in Union or Hermiston, chances are they're going to overlap with somebody that you need to meet in order to get that perfect job. So, and these are the companies we work with. So I specifically work on Disney and Walmart. So I've represented Disney for 31 years and Walmart for 21 years. And part of the reason why we hold on to these clients is that we've got to know these clients more than just a superficial level. We've got to know their kids and their families. We got to know their birthdays and their anniversaries. We were there when someone passed away in their family. So it's good to make those deeper connections because once you have those deeper connections, you basically will keep those connections for life. Any questions? Okay, and community service is really important. You're going to be graduating from EOU, and a lot of the faculty and administrators here are putting a lot of time and energy to make sure that you're prepared, your coaches as well. So I want to make sure that when you graduate, you don't forget to come back to LeGrand and pull up other people. And that's very important to me. That's why I keep coming back to EOU, is because I believe that I have an obligation, but also a duty to make sure that each and every one of you succeed. And you're not going to follow the same pathway as I did, and that's okay. I just want you to be able to find success however you want to define that. And I don't want to walk through this, but I do want to tell you, I kept my eye on the goal. I started off in a very small town, ended up in Los Angeles, but all along the way, things influenced me. Mentors, professors, teachers, people at church. All of these people have an impact on your life, and you're going to take things from each person. But remember where you take those things and be sure to pay it forward later. And I already mentioned this. You're going to have people that are going to make decisions in different ways. It's really important for all of you to find out how people make decisions. What do they consume? How do they consume it? Where do they consume it? What time do they consume it? And if you could do that, you could come up with a strategy. So research is going to be very important. And so when you do that research, you're going to be able to come up with a strategy to be able to reach people to make decisions in multiple ways. But this could also be your career. I will tell you, I've had 9 different jobs before I found something I liked. So whoever tells you that bouncing around probably isn't a great thing, ideal is if you could hold on to a job for a little while, that's great. But it took me 9 tries until I found my dream job. Yes. My lifespan? I'm still alive. Yeah, sure. This one.
Accordion band, U.S. champion. Wow. And
when you have very gullible parents and an Italian accordion player comes to your house and gives you an accordion, and then you push a key. What is that, a high key? It is like high, and then you push a low key, low. The Italian salesman went, "Oh my God, your son is brilliant. He can tell the difference between a high note and a low note. He should play the accordion." And all of a sudden, I'm playing the accordion. And next thing you know, I'm in a national championship accordion group. And the Italians beat us. So it's always good to share something interesting about you so you stand out. By the way, business majors, are you studying accounting? Not studying accounting yet? Do you like accounting? Hate accounting. Hate accounting. But accounting, you're going to be so grateful that you have an accounting professor here, because you're going to come back to accounting later and you're going to say, "I wish I paid attention to that accounting class." Because if you're going to be a good marketer, a good advertiser, a good communicator, you need to be able to read a P&L statement. You need to know how to use Excel. You cannot do that, you're going to put yourself at a little bit of a disadvantage. I will tell you the only thing I learned in accounting, this. You know what that stands for? What? Last in, first out. Okay, if you're involved in supply chain, you're moving goods and products, there's a method to this. Accounting teaches you this, a very important lesson. But I want you to all learn this also for networking. Okay, because your professors, your administrators, your HR people are going to invite you to things like this, and you're going to want to say yes to as many as you can. So that's me at a networking event, because I'm introverted. So this is me. There's a mountaineering event. The soccer team is putting it on with one of the fraternities here, and it starts at 6. So what time do I show up? 6:30. Say, "Oh God, Dr. Fields invited me to this, and I need to go because I need my extra credit." And so I will show up at 6:30, and and Dr. Carpenter is here too, and she has eagle eyes and will remember everything. So last person in, 6:30, I'll say, "Ooh, there's Dr. Carpenter. Dr. Carpenter, thank you so much for inviting me." And you're going to say, "Thank you so much for being here. You're going to learn a lot from them. Dr. Fields, it's so good to see you." And as soon as Dr. Carpenter's back is turned, right out the exit, last in, first out. Next time you get to a networking event, I want you to learn this. What does that stand for? First in, last out. Okay, networking event starts at 6. What time do you show up? 5:30. 5:30. What do? You find out who's working reception. "Oh my God, Sophie, it's so good to hear. Do you need any help?" "Well, yeah, actually I can. Can you help check people in?" "Absolutely." So people are getting checked in. You say, "Oh my God, this person is from Micron. This person is from Hermisted. This person works for Ore-Ida Potatoes. These are people I need to meet. This is a content creator. This is a sports celebrity." You're making the first good impression, not only on your colleague Sophie, but you're going to walk around in this room and you're going to see all of these executives standing there. This is what they're going to be doing. And you're going to say, "What's your name?" "My name is Anthony. So happy that you're here. Thank you so much for showing up at Eastern Oregon University. I have been looking forward to this talk for a long time. And by the way, Anthony, what's something quirky about yourself? Something you like. Something that you really like. Soccer. I follow soccer all the time. In fact, I follow your career. And I followed your career ever since I was 8 years old, which was 2 years ago. You make that connection right away. You make a very good first impression. And then when all of your favorite mountaineers are leaving the room at 7 o'clock, you stay, you're last out. You go back to that person and say, Sophie, thank you so much for letting me work at reception. It was really great. How else can I be a volunteer? Or thank you so much for what you spoke about today. I've been following you for a long time, and now I know another reason why. You've motivated me today, and I just want you to remember, I was the first person you met, but I also want to make sure that you're the last person you see today. Will they remember you? Absolutely. So when you're involved in networking, take advantage of that, because it's going to make a much longer and better impression, and it's going to help position you as a brand. So that's a lesson. So for me, I wanted to work at this company called McCann Erickson. McCann Erickson is probably the #1 or #2 advertising company in the world. They were recruiting on my campus. I applied. I did everything I thought I could do. And guess what? I didn't get that job. And I was pissed. I was like, who got this job over me? A guy named Greg Yost. I will never forget this man's name as long as I live. But Greg was very qualified because Greg did everything right. I thought I was going to get the job because I thought I was clever, but I wasn't. So I didn't get that job. But I never forgot that I wanted to work for McCann. So all through my career is jumping from job to job. I went into HR, hated it. Went into executive recruiting, made good money, hated it. Went into politics, really hated that. And then started a business, a miserable failure. And then I had an opportunity to work at Ogilvy, which is another big ad firm, and I took that opportunity. But I never forgot that I wanted to work for McCann. Fast forward after many, many years, once I got my company started, Interpublic buys 49% of our company. And who does Interpublic own? McCann. And so the other thing I want to try to get you to do, if you can do this, is to ask for what you want. If you want to work someplace, say so. If you want to do something, say so. And don't stop yourself from doing something. Try to say yes as much as you can, because that's going to be the best way to learn. So after I found out that McCann is owned by Interpublic, I said, I have an ask. And they said, Bill, what? And I said, I want the president of McCann Erickson to serve on my board of directors. And they said, absolutely. So the president of McCann now serves on my board of directors. So even if you don't get what you want the first time, keep your eye on the goal. If you take a job in a small company, no problem. Be the best person at that job that you can. Learn as much as you can. Get beyond this peach. Be very curious. Always ask great questions, and then move on if you need to. Learn as much as you can there, but always keep your eye on the goal. Similar to Jordan Crowley from BYU getting that job at Disney. She never wavered from her goal, but she took on other jobs, learned as much as she possibly could, leaned in on every opportunity to say yes, and took advantage of all the things that she learned on campus and all the things that she learned in the community that she's from. And now she's at Disney. So, any questions so far? Because I don't really want to bore you with too many details. Any worries or fears? Because I'd rather not have a presentation. I'd rather talk to you about, some of the things that you're thinking about. Could be anything. Yes. So that is a really good question. How do you stop yourself from comparing yourself to others? That is work in progress. So for me, it's really difficult to do that and shake that. And the other thing that I have a hard time shaking off is fear. Am I going to be good enough? This imposter syndrome just kind of pops in your head all the time. And even you're with a person that maybe you're equal, there's always that imposter syndrome kind of entering your head. I really don't deserve to be here. I shouldn't be in the room with this person. And this continues to this day. But the thing is, is I learned how to ask really good questions. I also learned how to be a good listener. And I know now when to insert myself. And then I always try to learn more things. And I finally got to a point where I converted fear into something positive. Because there's so much energy wasted. Oh my God, am I good enough to be in the room? Am I good enough to, you know, am I better than Anthony, or I'm at the same level as Anthony, or Anthony is way too smart, I'm never going to be at his level? You spend so much energy worrying about that somewhere down the line you're going to say, I need to stop that, and you're going to convert that to positive. Rather than worry about it, I'm going to do something about it. So if you have that imposter syndrome pop into your head, or that fear, then the next step you should ask yourself is, what can I do to alleviate that? I'll ask more questions. I'll take another class. I'll excel at my job. I'll volunteer for a committee. I'll talk to Anthony, break his legs. You're going to always want to try to do things like that to kind of just improve yourself. So it's easier said than done. But I will tell you, if you're an introvert like me, you'll do these presentations and you'll run back to the hotel and hide for 3 hours. But I will tell you that if one of your skill sets is listening, take advantage of that. For me, it's listening, and listening is a very powerful tool. And another thing that you just said that is really powerful is you admitted something that you're worried about. And that actually invites learning. If you have some humility, say, I don't know what I don't know, but I'd like to learn. Tell me what you know. And so first of all, I want to say thank you for asking that question, because that is not an easy question to ask. But for me, it's like, use something that you're very talented and excel at that. So I'll just give you an example. I tried to get into Toyota forever. And every time I was working in General Motors at the time. General Motors executive was leaving and basically said, Bill, I'm going to be leaving. And as I leave, the new person coming in is going to want their own agency, and it's probably not your company. And I said, oh, crap. And so I said, Toyota, I'm going to get Toyota. And I tried to get to Toyota, but our favorite friends down the street in Portland, Wyden and Kennedy, blocking my way every time I could get to Toyota, along with Saatchi and Team One. Every time I tried to get to an executive, another agency would block my way. And I couldn't get anywhere with that. Trying to get from point A to point B, straight line. Go right to the marketing person, sell myself, do my elevator speech. And then I realized that I had an even better asset that the other agencies don't have, a really good listener. So at an event, the executive from Toyota is sitting at another table with all of her protectors from the other agency. And she is a very strong, intelligent, assertive person. She's talking, and all of a sudden, I see her demeanor change. So I'm not only listening, I'm paying attention to her body language as well. And she just changed it completely. She said, my daughter almost died from a peanut allergy. I was very stressed. It really worried me. If I didn't have an EpiPen, she might have died. And you just saw this totally different person appear on the screen. Appear in person. And I made a mental note of that. Fast forward, a woman in our office named Norma says, Bill, I'm going to be leaving the company. I got a really great job over at Whole Foods. I said, go for it. It's a good opportunity. Then a few weeks later, she calls me and goes, Bill, my son almost died. And I said, what happened? He was on a Southwest Airlines flight, and they no longer serve peanuts, by the way. And he inhaled some of the peanut dander, and he almost asphyxiated. He almost suffocated on the plane. And now I make sure everything I do for my son is prepared. I prepare all of his meals, and I do a recipe book. And I said, you do a recipe book for your son because of his peanut allergy? And she said, yes, why? And I said, I need you to do me a favor. I want you to call this person up from Toyota and tell her what you just told me. And she said, absolutely. Why? And I said, because her daughter almost died of a peanut allergy. She goes, do you have her number? I said, I do. Here it is. She picked up the phone and called her and said, I heard your daughter almost died from a peanut allergy. I want you to know I created a cookbook. And they had a 45-minute conversation. And the executive said, who told you about my daughter? And Norma said, Bill Imada. She goes, Bill Imada? I barely know that person. Why would he do that? And she said, because he cares. And he heard a conversation that you were having. He wanted me to show the book. Next thing you know, I get a phone call from Toyota. Bill, I don't know you very well. I had a great conversation with Norma. I don't know what it's going to take, but you're going to be working for us. That was almost 18 years ago. We now work for Lexus. So if you can convert that into something positive, that's going to take you so much further. You don't want to discount the things that you're worried and fearful about. You want to address those things, but there's going to be moments in your life that you're going to fall on your face. And you're going to do it every single day. What you need to do is try to pick yourself up as quickly as you can, build allies and friends, connect with the professors and the career people here, and to rely heavily on the people that are around you to support you. And that's what you need to do. And then try some things. You don't have to do things immediately. You can take steps. Okay, I have imposter syndrome, so I'm going to take one step to fix that. And here it is. And then if you run back to A, that's okay. Regroup, try again. And then once you have confidence there, try again. And once you build more confidence, you get to B. And then you go all the way back to A and start all over again if you want to. So, and that kind of leads me to this. All of us have a life cycle. And we teach this in business school. And you probably have seen this, right? So some companies, so if I were to ask you have you ever heard the social media platform called Friendster or Snapchat? Of course you heard of Snapchat. Where's Snapchat on this line? Over here? Over here? Oh, man. Woo. Where's TikTok on that line? Where is IG? Where's YouTube? One person's giving me a lot of hand signals, so I love it. So where do you see yourselves on this? Probably over here. So you have a little bit of time, but if you get to this point, you want to keep shaking things up. You don't want to be complacent, because if you get too complacent, you're stuck here. If you're stuck here, it takes a long time to regroup. So you want to try to always be learning and shaking things up as you're moving up this hill. Because once you get here, it's really, really hard to go the other direction. So I said, while you're here, learn as much as you possibly can. Take some risks. Be curious. Always be thinking about things that you could do to improve yourself and improve others. And when you get to this point, pretend like you're still here. So you're going to want to move from this to this. Start here, come around, and start again. Start here, come around, and start again. And so I'm trying to get students to do that. If you could do that, you're going to be so successful in your career. And that means that you're always going to make yourself curious about something. You're going to want to talk to people. You're going to want to learn who they are. You want to learn about what makes them tick. You want to know about companies and organizations, how they work. And then you want to align your values as much as possible with those brands and companies. And the more you do that and get to that emotional connection, the stronger your brand's going to be when you get there. Any questions so far? Okay, I think just say questions. I've been talking a lot. Who wants to hear me talk for like an hour and a half? Okay, job opportunities if you're interested in marketing. By the way, there are a lot of different jobs in marketing and a lot of different jobs in advertising and communication. So don't limit yourself. Almost every student that graduates say, Bill, I want to work in strategy. 80% of people that graduate want to work in strategy. Strategy is a great, fun place to work, but don't limit yourself to just strategy. You might want to do account management. You might want to be in accounting and finance. I don't, but other people do, because one person's candy is another one's poison. For me, accounting is poison, but that's why you hire people and you surround yourself with people that know that, because if you have a skill set that you don't know, either you learn it or you bring on other people that can. But there are multiple ways to get into an agency, and these are some of the creative processes that we use. So we need good writers, people that know how to write briefs. We need people that are really good researchers to review both quantitative and qualitative. So we're looking for people that know how to do research online, but also can do research, qualitative research in person, or can think of the tools that we need to do that. We need people that are creative. So people that are good with drawing, art, graphic design, people that are good using AI tools. We're looking for all of those types of people. We're also looking for people that know how to brainstorm. By the way, how many of you go through brainstorming sessions? Next time you do a brainstorming session, do not allow yourself to stop at 10 ideas. Set a goal to come up with a minimum of 100 ideas, because sometimes the best idea is idea number 89. I'm going to teach you a little quick tool on brainstorming, because when you do brainstorming, you might have 10 people in a room and 3 people participate. That is not a good way to brainstorm. So I'm going to give you an example of how to do this. So we're going to do this with brands. Starting from A to Z. So you're going to be A. What's the brand that starts with A? B. It's okay to ask for help. B. Huh? Bing. C. Let's go. D. Dick's Sporting Goods. E. F. Firefox. G. Google. H. I. There's a company like this in IKEA. Very good. IKEA. J. Very good. K. Good. L. M. Very good. N. New Balance. Awesome. O. All right, good. P. Patagonia. That's a good one. That's all right. I'm calling on you. I'm making you think on the spot here. R. Woo. That's a good one. S. S. There you go. T. U. Uber. Unilever. V. Verizon. W. Walmart. Very good. And that's going to get harder. Y. Ooh, really good. X. actually somebody told me they never heard of this company when I mentioned, what'd you say? That's the company. I said Xerox and somebody goes, what's that? Wow. And Z. So, now I want you to brainstorm an including flavor. You're working for 31 flavors. And I want you to come up with the craziest ice cream. Can somebody write these down? You ready? Okay, starting with A, ice cream flavor. Oh, please. Go on. M. Dr. Fields. Butter. Oh. What was that? Oh, Oreo. Okay. Hey. Pizza. Cute. Question mark. Like that. Question mark. History product. R. Right. Okay. Right. Flavor. S. Soccer. Okay. T. Y. H. There you go. So is that a different way to do brainstorming? Did everyone have a chance to participate? And by the way, this was done by an ice cream company. And some of the flavors they came up with was balsamic vinegar ice cream, olive flavored ice cream. And guess what? Those became top sellers. So sometimes the craziest ideas, like somebody said a few, like the question mark, I love the question mark because there's always a mystery to it as well. So when you do brainstorming, try that next time where everyone has to come up with a flavor and then do it again and then do it again. And then you're going to have over 100 ideas and I will guarantee one of those ideas is going to be a winner. Any thoughts so far? Okay, Almost done. I'm not going to go through this because it's just too much stuff. I am not going to go through all this. I already went through this. I think I was going to show you some AI stuff, but I'm not sure if you want to see any of that. But I can walk through some of that. Okay. I will try not to make it boring because I think sometimes it's. But we are embracing AI. So our McDonald's spot is completely AI. But you still need people like you to provide the prompts because AI does not fully work. And unless it has a human quotient to it, it will not work. Because in one of our spots, the person that we had 6 fingers. And then we asked it to come up with holiday ornaments. And AI was trying to find all the holidays from every part of the world. And we had a reindeer with 6 foot, 6 feet, and 2 horns. And our team, never seen a reindeer before. It said, wow, this is kind of cool. Reindeer have 6 hooks. And it said, what reindeer has 6 hooks? AI found this. And I said, you gotta be kidding. Who has 6 or 7 digits? You still need to pay attention to AI because it will mess with you, and you need to teach it. It could be your friend, it could be your partner, but unless you manage it and pay attention to the details, it could also be your downfall. So I'm just going to walk you through a few things about what we're doing with AI, and hopefully it will make sense. So since we're a multicultural firm, we're doing a lot with different audiences. And not everybody in our company is Asian. We have Latinos, they are white people in our group, we have Black people, we have people of mixed race. Oops. We have people of all different backgrounds. It does not matter where you're from. You could all be good at doing this, okay? So I already played that. So this is what happened when we did artificial. We wanted to find gloves for a glove company. And our team said, Bill, we found it. I said, really? Who will wear that? And he said, it's an anomaly. People will be very excited about it. It's going to get us fired. So you do have to pay attention to these things. And the only way to do that is human intelligence, because right now AI cannot replace who you are. Okay, so we're working on one of the biggest holidays for Asian Americans, particularly Chinese Americans, is Lunar New Year. McDonald's wanted to be a part of that. We talked McDonald's into using AI. McDonald's and a lot of companies, they don't always want you to use AI because AI is still a little bit of a problem for people that don't know how to use it properly. It is a tool. It is not the answer to everything, and it will still need smart people like you to question it. And if you're really good at AI, you will question everything that AI produces. And you'll ask yourself, and you'll ask others, does this make sense? And if you don't do that, you'll run into a lot of problems. So we use a lot of tools. We've been experimenting with everything, and I want to encourage you to experiment with as much AI as possible. I'm working on Claude. Our team is working on Copilot, but we're also looking at all the different tools, not just in the US, but the Canadian tools, the European tools, the Asian tools, and we're learning a lot about how AI works. And so the good thing about AI is it is kind of a level playing field in some respects, because the boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, the alpha, the Gen Zers are all learning how to use AI because it really is something different. So we focus on New Year's because New Year's is a very important holiday, but it's also known as Chinese New Year, Spring Festival. In Korean, it's called Solal. And what is it important? It's an important time because you're celebrating, you bring your families together, you reunite people, you share the foods that you like. It doesn't matter if you're 4th generation or 5th generation Chinese. or Asian, you carry those traditions and then you kind of adapt it as you move. It's kind of like my family at Thanksgiving. We still have a turkey, but then we'll add wontons and sushi to it as well. So we're taking an American holiday, but we're putting our own stamp on it. Same with these Asian holidays. And usually when you celebrate New Year, all of these things are important. Togetherness, family, reunions, games. And it's a time where you get together and you share and reminisce and you pass on good fortune. So, of course, different parts of the US, they have street fairs and events. In places like California and New York, it is now an official state holiday. So we actually take this day off in LA. And then you look at different brands and how they're looking at different holidays. It might be Cinco de Mayo, it might be St. Patrick's Day, it might be Veterans Day. We're looking at all these different holidays and trying to find a way to make that emotional connection with the companies and with the people you're trying to reach. So people like Apple, Lego, Louis Vuitton, they're all doing things to appeal to different audiences because the world has changed so quickly and the consumer base has changed. So for McDonald's, McDonald's also realized that they have to be on top of trends. They also have to reach new markets. And when we have different people coming to the United States, immigrants or people moving from state to state, we have to constantly change up the way we market. You could always find the same type of food at McDonald's, but we're always thinking of ways to reach the audience in a unique way. So, and then we look at some of the stats. Research, research, research. You cannot have a strategy without credible research. That's why a lot of the professors here, in order for them to matriculate and become tenured, they have to have a body of work to get there. The same will be true for all of you, is that you want to be able to back up everything that you're doing with credible data, not Wikipedia. Credible data that you could find. It could be secondary, but if you could do primary, even better. And we found out that without perpetuating too many stereotypes, that Asian Americans are early adopters of tech or early adopters of AI technology, etc. So, and we also found these stats through secondary research that 60% of Asian Americans actively practice their family traditions and they make it their own wherever they are. And Lunar New Year is really important at maintaining culture, but also looking at the things that are really important to this group of consumers, that they want to have the latest technology and be on top of trends. So we found this person named Karen Chang, who is an amazing content creator. She's into AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, and she's been experimenting with AI, particularly three-dimensional AI work and augmented reality. So we brought her on as a partner. She already had over 500 million views through her social channels, particularly on YouTube. So we looked at different ways to convince McDonald's. McDonald's said, we are not doing AI. AI is going to get us in trouble. Disney, Walmart, a lot of these companies do not want you to use AI because they're worried about lots of things: privacy, secrecy, where it's going to go, how it's going to play out on socials, how it's going to look in terms of the jobs that they have currently. But we convinced them that we could do all of these and still have some specific controls: AI, augmented reality, and virtual reality with some controls. And so this is our first rendition of what we came up with. And so we're doing a lot of things with McDonald's, and this is just an example of why AR will trip up on you, why AI will trip. We said we want to have a farmhouse in Iowa for a typical American grandmother. And you should have saw what it came up with. We went, what in the world is this? It just was grabbing information from all these different sources. We said, from what we know from our research, this is not what grandma looks like. Then we asked for an African-American couple in a traditional role. And what did we get? Black people in prison. Black people who play basketball. We said this is another reason why you have to pay attention to the problems that might come up with AI, is that it's grabbing information from all over the place, it synthesizes it in place, and it perpetuates some really bad stereotypes or myths. It could be a problem for a company like McDonald's. And then this is another area, before I jump into this, that's really important. So if you're looking at a career, marketing, advertising, and public relations, there are multiple areas. If you like doing events, like Megan here, events is a great way to get engaged in marketing, because today's brands want to connect with consumers. They want you to experience the brand in different ways. So if you like to do events or activations, if you like to do pop-ups, if you like to do food carts, if you like to take over restaurants and bars, or take over a gas station like you did right here on Adams, this is a form of brand activation, which is becoming very, very popular, particularly with multi-generational households. People no longer want you to talk about the brand. They want you to feel it, taste it, smell it, experience it. Because if you experience the brand early, chances are you're going to love that brand later. So, and here's just some examples of that. And it doesn't have to be this sophisticated, it could be less. You could do something, so with the shoe brand that is based in Oregon, won't say the name, because you all know who it is. We actually saw a parking lot, an empty parking lot that nobody had used. We didn't know who owned it. We made no attempt to figure out who owned it. We decided one day we're going to take over that parking lot. And it was for an off-brand of this very big global brand. So we put up tents, we put up shoes, and we went to these clubs all around the country. I'm just amazed that this has not changed from boomers to millennials to Gen Zers and Gen Xers. You see a line at an event to get into the hottest nightclubs. And we said, let's talk to the owner of the nightclub and cut a deal with them. So I told my staff, nobody is going to do this. And they said, Bill, if they can get to the front of the line and get into the club first, they're going to give us their entire life story, their emails, their text numbers. I said, nobody's going to give you their phone number. to text a message and they go, watch us. You want to get in front of the club? How do we get in front of the club? Can we give you a number? We'll let you know where there's going to be a rave party in about 45 minutes. Oh, absolutely. Final line. 1,500 people gave us their phone numbers. I'm still shocked about that today. We decided to set up in Venice Beach, took over, put up tents, put up a little band. We texted everyone. In 45 minutes, come to Venice Beach. There's going to be a party. We're going to give away free merch. 1,000 people showed up. And we went, wait a minute, there's a lot of people here. Everybody was standing in line. There were people having fun. They were dancing in the street. The police show up. What's going on here? Officer, we're just having a little party. You need to take this down now. This is private property. Go the officer. And everybody's texting. Oh my God, the police are shutting this down. This is cool. Everybody's watching the police, taking videos of that. It went viral. And we took it all down in 20 minutes. But we made a deep connection with the people that were there. They said, this brand must be cool. The police are shutting it down. And I had to eat my words because my staff said, I told you, Bill, people will give us their telephone numbers just to get into a party. So that was an activation that we did. And we do a lot of those kind of things now. I think I'm going to just wrap it up because it's enough already. Anybody have any questions, worries, concerns that I can help with? Megan.
Thank you. So you talked about earlier in your life, you bounce around to a lot of jobs, and we spend majority of our life in jobs. So it's important to find something we're passionate about. Did you have like a guiding principle when you were going through those jobs to find the one you're in now and like something that you're passionate about and something that you live by?
She asked me if I had a guiding principle when I was probably looking for my first job. I will tell you absolutely not. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I just want to reassure you that if you don't know what you want to do, it's okay. I thought I wanted to be in HR because I believe that helping people would be awesome. So somebody said, well, Bill, if you like to help people, be in human resources. You get to hire people. You get to interview people. You get to give them raises and promotions. And I said, I'm in. So when I was a senior in college, I applied for that job so I could help people. And I ended up getting that job before I graduated, way before all of my colleagues. And I decided, and the person that hired me said, you either take this job now or we're going to give it to somebody else. I said, I'm graduating in a few months. Can you wait? And they said, no. I said, you can't wait for a few months. I want to get my degree. Take the job or leave it. So I made a decision to take the job. So I dropped out of school. I ended up finishing, but I dropped. And I went, HR, my God, this is awesome. Everybody was really excited. Hiring people, giving them raises, promoting them, working and negotiating their salary. And then a labor organization came to unionize the place. And I thought, oh, it's no problem. You know, unions should be able to represent working people. What a pain. And then I had to discipline people and fire people. I had to lay off people. And went, I should have looked at it as a way to help people, but I looked at it as something that was dragging down my career. And I said, I can't do HR anymore. So I quit. And I took on another job in HR and didn't like that. So I moved around a lot, but I always believed that you should help people. So I looked for that opportunity, but I think that opportunity came when I was working. I've told this story so many times. Hopefully it's not a little far, but I went into HR, hated it, went into executive recruiting, hated it, went into politics, loved that for a while until all the divisiveness in the political world, couldn't deal with that. Started a small business with somebody I met on a plane that I was reading about in a newspaper. I looked across the aisle, that person is there, we started a conversation, split decision, decided to start a company with this person. It failed. And then I went crawling back to the advertising world saying, I need a job. McCann wouldn't hire me. Maybe Ogilvy will. And the first thing they said to me is, you're too old. We don't hire 27-year-olds or 28-year-olds. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. We only hire 20, 21, 20-year-olds. I said, I'll do whatever it takes to get this job. And finally they said, temp to perm. I'll take it. And they put me on the Tobacco Institute. I said, what's the Tobacco Institute? They said, Bill, that is promoting tobacco smoking in the US. I can't do that. And David Ogilvy, the founder of the agency, has a policy. If you have a moral objection to working on a product, you can go to the president and say, I need to be reassigned. So that is the first thing I did, walked into the president's office and said, I can't work on the tobacco industry. And he said, well, that's tough, Bill. You're temp to perm. You have no status here. You either work on that or there is the door. Your choice. I guess I'll be promoting tobacco. So that wasn't aligned with my values, but I will tell you, when I started working on tobacco, they did research. The tobacco industry does tons of research. And I looked at this research and said, you need to question this research because this research is wrong. The tobacco industry should not be commissioning research to promote themselves. And so the first question I got was, you will write a press release that tobacco smoking does not impact an unborn fetus. I said, I need research. Well, there is research. Here it is. I said, that is research from Philip Morris. That is research from Lorillard. These are tobacco companies. Where is the non-biased research? This is all you need. Write that press release. And I said, I will not write that press release. And they said, you'll write that press release or you will be fired. And I said, I will not write a press release without credible research. And if you cannot provide it to me, I will not write it. I'm going to get you fired. Here's my boss. This is his telephone number. Go for it. A few days go by. I need you to write a press release. Secondhand smoke does not impact a person that doesn't smoke. I will not write that press release because there's no credible research. We have it. I will not write it. I will get you fired. Here's the phone number of my boss. Go for it. A few days later, the person in charge of the Tobacco Institute, and I'm happy to put this on tape, calls me up and says, Bill, let's cut a deal. Say you wrote the press release about the unborn fetus, and tell me you pitched it to the media, and the Oregonian decided they didn't want to cover it. But that would be lying. We have a deal, right? I said, but I don't want to lie. She said, say you wrote the press release and pitched it and nobody picked it up. Deal. So I wrote all these press releases, filed them, and never got a story. And then Anheuser-Busch offers me an opportunity that Ogilvy did not want to take. If you had 500,000 US dollars, how would you reach Asian American consumers? And everybody at Ogilvy was like, you want to work on this? Do you want to work on this? And walk up to me, Bill, do you want to work on this? What makes you think I want to work on that? You're Asian, right? Yeah, I'm Asian, but doesn't mean I know how to market to my peeps. I don't want to do it. And he goes, okay, fine, we're not going to do it. Thought about it for a few minutes and said, I should say yes to this. Do I know anything about marketing to Asian Americans? No. But do I think I can do this? Yes. So I pulled together my favorite white friends over at Ogilvy and the one Latino that worked in the mailroom, and we put together a strategy with real research. We were on the plane going to St. Louis, and we find out we're missing 3 pages from the strategy document, the brief that Anheuser-Busch had sent. We get that at the last minute, we're completely off strategy. And I said, oh, crap. So we're writing things in the airplane on Post-its, on napkins, and we said, we got this. We're gonna get to St. Louis, we're gonna go to FedEx and find it was Kinko's. We're gonna redo our boards. There was no PowerPoint back then, and we will get this done. Snowstorm in St. Louis, the worst in history. We had to make a decision, present our boards that were off strategy and try to sell it, or use our napkins and Post-its. At the very last minute, we chose the napkins and Post-its. We go to Anheuser-Busch, and the executive assistant said, what in the world is this? This is our presentation. We will not be presenting napkins and Post-its. Oh, yes, we are. And the executive VP walks in, what's the commotion? These guys want to present on a bunch of napkins and Post-its. Well, let them go. Here we are. This Post-it, sorry, coffee stain, is T-shirts at golf, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this EPS and all this going on. We sold that completely, and we were walking out the door, and the executive assistant said, "You are not getting our business." That was pathetic. But we could tell the executive VP was kind of into it, especially when we said ski fiesta. And then I get a phone call 3 days later from Anheuser-Busch. Congratulations, you got our work. We love the idea about ski fiesta, and you sold it. And I told our colleagues at the company, we got this business, I'm really excited. And then our executive says, oh, we can't work on Anheuser-Busch. We have a competing client in Europe. Tell Anheuser-Busch thank you, but no thank you, we're gonna have to pass. What? You made us pitch this business only to tell us you have a conflict? And he goes, frankly, I didn't think you guys had a chance. Well, that's confidence for you. So I called up Executive Vice President Anheuser-Busch and I tell him, we can't work on your business. And he goes, start your own agency. I said, I'm not starting a company. I think I told you my last company failed. And I had student loans that I deferred, and you guys relate to that, right? Student loans, you defer some more. I deferred forever. So I had student loan debt and debt from my failed business. I said, I can't do it. He goes, what's your debt like? I said, at least $60,000. And he said, it's really too bad because I think you'd be really good in business. And I said, I'm really sorry to waste your time. 3 days later, I get a FedEx or UPS, and there's a $60,000 check from Anheuser-Busch in it. And a really funky note in there. I think it's a get your ass in gear, something rude. And I looked at the check and I went, I just told this man we can't work in his business. So I called him up and his name was Jesse Aguirre. He retired. And I said, Mr. Aguirre, I think I told you we cannot work on your business. Why would you send me this check? And he said, Mr. Imada, you said you're $60,000 in debt. Your debt is repaid. What's your excuse for not starting a company? I said, I'm not starting a company. I'm really sorry. And he goes, then rip up the check. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. As soon as I hung up, I thought about it, called 3 of my friends and said, want to have dinner? And that's how IW Group got started. So, but I do want to leave you with a couple of things because it's already 12. Question number one, response is ask for what you want. And of course, you have to know what you want first, but ask for what you want because you might get it. And then other thing is I want to leave you with some quotes because the beauty of living in this country, you're going to meet lots of very cool people. And I learned from everybody. And there's a guy named Booker T. Washington for the Tuskegee Institute. He said, if you want to lift up yourself, lift up someone else. Another person, this Italian-American woman named Catherine Barchetti in Pittsburgh. She wanted to start a retail empire, and every step along the way, she got blocked. Her quote is, make a customer, not a sale. The same would be true for an employer. Make an employer, not a sale. If you can convince your employer that you are in a good place to help them grow, and you'll grow along with them, that's going to make the deal. And the last one is, Latinos have the saying, donde comen cinco, comen seis. Does anybody know what that means? If you could feed 5 people at your dinner table, there's always room for a 6th person, or a 7th person, or an 8th person. And I love that about Latino culture, but I also want you to look at it this way. If you have an opportunity to let somebody sit at your table that you do not agree with, that you may not like, but has a different idea from your own, welcome them to your table and have a spirited discussion, because that's the best way to learn about branding and marketing. is to be open to ideas that are different than your own. So thank you all for your time. And by the way, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to chat with any of you. If you come up with any other answers or questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Thank you all. 2 hours in a room with me. Thank you. And thanks to our tech folks too. How are you? Of course. How are you? Good to see you.